to the ground. You found the reason to not give in. Your name is called on forest wind. Thank you.
Of Arts and Ideas is created and produced on the traditional lands of the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot. The International Festival of Arts and Ideas is created and produced on the traditional lands of the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Scaticoke, Golden Hill Paugussett, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac, in the land we all call home, Connecticut. We hope that from wherever you are, you take a moment to acknowledge and honor the native people whose land you are on and the history of the place you are in.
The International Festival of Arts and Ideas stands in solidarity with Black and Brown communities and other groups who are targeted and abused by unjust systems of oppression. We support all movements working to decenter white voices and dismantle white supremacy. We are actively seeking to dismantle systemic racism, and we raise our voices with those in our community who are already engaged in this vital work. We commit to working alongside you to create transformative change in New Haven and in our global community.
I'll take my mask off so you can hear me. Hello. My name is Reverend Kevin Ewing, Rev Kev, and I am the proprietor of Baobab Tree Studios. That was a little advertisement on my mask there. Baobab Tree Studios right there in the 9th Square. And I'm also a proud member of the board of directors of the International Festival of Arts and Ideas, this here thing you're at today. I'd like to welcome you to Festival 2021, the year of imagination. Can somebody say imagination? Imagination. Okay, now, the reverend is serious. I actually am a reverend. I'm a black preacher. I need y'all to talk back to me. So can somebody say imagination?
Imagination.
Thank you. This year, we have been bringing programming that explores the world, both as it is today and how we imagine it could be, it should be, it will be in the future. Let me hear you say imagine.
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 So we're here today for the Storyslam. Can I hear you say Storyslam?
Storyslam.
But before we do that, I just want to thank our sponsors, our artists, all of the artists, and also you, our audience, for making this possible. Thank you. Storyslam. Are you ready for the Story Slam? Let me hear you say Story Slam.
Story Slam.
All right. I just have one question. I don't know what a Story Slam is. Denise, what's a Story Slam?
Well, Kev, a Story Slam is when we have a storyteller who's going to come up and they have 5 minutes, 5 minutes plus 1 minute grace, to tell you a story, to move your hearts, to make you excited. And then this is where you all come in. Once you've listened to all of our storytellers, you, the audience, will decide who gets to take home this wonderful prize to be the first Story Slam winner at the 2021 Festival of Arts and Ideas. And if our storytellers go over, we get to hear more music from the marvelous Adam Matlock. Please give him one more hand of applause. Okay, so our storytellers are going to come and sit on the stage, and then we're going to pull the first name out of the hat. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I might not be as good as him, but come on, Story Slam, are you ready?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Tellers?
Sorry, I forgot to thank you.
So, Kevin, pull the first name out of the hat. Who's the first victim?
The first person, the first storyteller is Jenny Bonaldo.
Jenny has told stories. It's too windy. This has told stories at the Moth in New York City, Boston, Connecticut, Speak Up, Tell Me Another Story, The Mouth Off, and Songs and Stories.
I'm standing in the hallway, staring at my 6-year-old daughter's bedroom door, just dreading what awaits me on the other side. It's 7:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, and all I have to do is get through the next half an hour, and I will be free. And I know my struggle isn't unique. Most parents of young kids have to deal with the ridiculousness of multiple stories, multiple glasses of water that lead to multiple trips to the bathroom. And all kids are experts in the 1 more minute routine that always leads to at least 15 more minutes of snuggling. But my daughter, Charlie, has written a masterclass in bedtime nonsense. Because when I open her door, I don't find Charlie there at all. I find a unicorn, a very pregnant unicorn who is about to give birth right there in Charlie's bed. And I'm not surprised, because every night when I walk into Charlie's room after my husband has bathed and clothed her, I find some kind of unicorn, sun, moon, lava, lying prostrate on Charlie's bed and in great distress. And this is when my husband will pat my back and take his leave, and I have to assume my nightly role, because I'm the unicorn doula, one who must be skilled in the art of handling magical and often angry and aggressive unicorns who will burn me with fire or sunshine or lava. Sometimes the unicorn is invisible, and there is no instruction manual for how to deliver an invisible baby unicorn. You just have to learn that on the job. Tonight, I find a fire unicorn in Charlie's bed, and she is writhing around and neighing wildly, shooting fire at me and trying to swipe at me with her hoof. And despite the challenges, I know I have a job to do. So I approach the unicorn carefully. I speak to her in a gentle voice. "I'm just here to help," I say, and she begins to relax. And I wonder, how did I get here? Like, how did I go from story reader to birth worker? How did I get duped into this when this isn't even my first bedtime routine rodeo? My 11-year-old daughter, Ella, had her own ridiculous bedtime quirks, though, to be fair, none of them involved crowning baby unicorns. But I remember when she was 3 years old, and I had to write a manual for a babysitter that included things like, she will want 3 Band-Aids, but only 1 can go on her face. And she will ask you to adjust the degree to which the door stays open, but tell her you will not do it more than 5 times. So you'd think that I would be an expert in reining in bedtime absurdity, but as I find myself pulling a stuffed polar bear out of my child's nightgown and saying things like, "You got this, Mama," to a 6-year-old, I realize I have learned nothing. Finally, the game is over, and we settle in to read a book when my older daughter, Ella, pulls me out into the hallway. And I'm instantly annoyed that she needs something from me right now that she can't simply ask her father for. But when I get out there, she gives me this letter, and it says "Top Secret" on the front. And when I open it, she's written a letter to her sister, Charlie, or rather, a tooth fairy named Bella has written a letter to Charlie, who's just lost her first tooth that morning. She's drawn a cartoon version of a tooth fairy and written this little story about how Bella is a new graduate of tooth fairy school out on her first mission. Charlie will love it. I put the letter in my pocket so that I can put it under Charlie's pillow later when she falls asleep. I say thank you to Ella, and she goes back into her room and closes the door. She'll stay there for the rest of the night, listening to wildly inappropriate young adult fiction on her iPad and French braiding her own hair, something I don't even know how to do. She'll put herself to bed, possibly without even a hug or a kiss from me. And I wonder, when was the last time I put her to bed? I have no idea. I go back in to read a story to Charlie. We read a Berenstain Bear book, and when she asks for another, I don't say no. And when she asks for one more round of would you rather during snuggle time, I don't say no to that either. I give her a hug and a kiss and leave, and I stand in the hallway for a minute and I think about all the ways in which she will transform, all the ways in which she won't need me. When the story about the unicorn doula will just be something funny we tell around the dinner table, and she'll say, I did that? And it'll break my heart a little bit that she doesn't even remember. Before I go downstairs, I go and knock on Ella's door. She doesn't answer, so I peer in, and I see her lying in her loft bed with her headphones in. Her room is a preteen disaster of books and clothes and half-finished art projects. I wade through the mess, and I climb up the little ladder. I kiss her on the forehead, and she sort of furrows her brow at me, but she doesn't protest. I say, I love you, and she says it back. And as I leave, I ask her just how far open she wants me to leave the door. Thank you.
We're going to pull the next name out of the hat. Remember that story. You're going to have to vote on it later. You're not getting off easy on this.
Need a drum roll.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Whoop, I got you. Up next, we have Ron Apter.
Ron Apter has been telling stories to judges and juries his entire legal career. So think carefully about what he's going to tell you. It may come back to bite you later. Watch out, Ron's here.
Welcome, class of 1979, reads the sign outside the door. A middle-aged woman greets me as I step inside. Hi, Ron. Do you remember me? She asks with a smile. I'll give you a hint. 11th grade trig class. I glance awkwardly at the graduation photo that's pinned to her dress. It looks nothing like her. Of course I remember you, I lie. Who could ever forget those parabolas? She hands me my name tag. A wavy-haired boy with a bemused smile stares back at the 58-year-old me, as if to say, do you remember me? It's September 2019, and I've come back for my 40th high school reunion. I'm excited to be here, but a little wary, too. I have no idea who's going to be here tonight, or why I feel this need to spend time with people I haven't thought about in decades. I scan the dimly lit room. There's a small dance floor with a disco ball and a memorial table for 15 of our former classmates who've passed. I head straight to the bar. It's packed with former brains and jocks and a couple of the cool kids I used to know. So, what have you been doing all these years? One classmate asks. I know I should have a ready answer, but I don't know how to condense 40 years into a 40-second soundbite. But after a few watered-down vodka and tonics, my tongue begins to loosen. And all the small talk about marriages and mortgages gives way to teenage tales of contests and conquests and missed opportunities. My friend John reminds me of the first time we got drunk together drinking blackberry brandy he'd stolen from his parents' liquor cabinet. My basketball teammate Wally reminisces about a big game we won junior year. And Kay, who's a grandmother now, confesses how she used to ride her bike all the way across town sometimes just hoping to see me. Thankfully, the statute of limitations on admitting crushes has finally expired. Just then, I feel a slap across the back of my head. I wheel around. It's Robbie, my best friend from high school. Would you watch the hair? I spent a long time on my hair, and you hit it I say in my best Brooklyn accent. Tony, you was gonna call me tonight. I thought you was gonna call me, he says in his own New York twang. I can't remember the last time we saw each other, but back in high school, Robbie and I were inseparable. The R&R Express, we used to call ourselves, bound by our mutual hatred of our soccer coach, who'd benched us both, and our shared love of Shelley Valentine. Shelley was quietly smart, with a Dorothy Hamill hairdo and a crooked smile. Unbeknownst to either of us, Robbie and I each asked Shelley to go to the junior prom. Somehow it never occurred to us to talk to each other first, or that she might say no. Shelley's not here tonight, which is probably a good thing, or else we'd still be fighting over her. But the thing that truly cemented Robbie's and my friendship was Saturday Night Fever. We saw it the very first day that it came out, and another 10 or 15 times after that. We snuck in, like we always did. And right from the first opening scene, when Tony Manero, John Travolta's character, strutted down that Brooklyn Boulevard in his black leather jacket and shiny red shoes, everything changed for us. We wanted to be like Tony, move like him, have the girls swoon over us like him. We even called each other Tony. And on Saturday nights when we were 18, or at least when our fake driver's licenses said we were 18, we'd go to a local club and pretend we owned the dance floor. Hey, do you remember that time we saw Saturday Night Fever with Shelley, Robbie asks? We left our winter coats in the car and picked up a couple of ticket stubs off the ground to give to the ticket taker so he would think we'd already been inside. Shelley was so pissed that we didn't pay, Robbie says with a laugh. But even as he's talking, another memory inexplicably creeps into my mind. It's a scene toward the end of the movie. Tony is sitting on a park bench beneath the Verrazano Bridge next to his girlfriend, Stephanie. And he's describing the bridge to her, its height, its span, the number of cars that cross to the city each year. It's like he's reciting poetry. Shelley is sitting between Robbie and me, so close I can feel the warmth of her arm against mine, smell the apple shampoo in her hair. The bridge, the burrows, the longing for something, for some place else, flickers silently across the silver screen, beckoning to us. Suddenly, the overhead lights go on. It takes me a minute to adjust my eyes. The reunion is over. The hours, like the years, have ticked away. I linger on the dance floor for several minutes, making promises to stay in touch I know I'll never keep. But in this moment, it occurs to me that reconnecting with these old friends and classmates isn't why I've come back here tonight. Not really. It's me I've come to see. My curious, cocky, clueless 18-year-old self, with everything still in front of me, all the lives I still might lead, when I can only imagine what lies ahead. Robbie and I step outside into the cool autumn night and head our separate ways. And as he's walking across the parking lot, I call out to him, "Hey, Tony." He responds without missing a beat. "Can you dig it?" "I knew that you could," he says. And with that, I get into my car, wistfully, and head for home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Sorry about that, but we got almost to 7 minutes there. We're going to pull the next name. I mean, that's the horror of this. I was afraid I was going to have to do that.
Our next teller is Matthew Dix.
Matthew Dix is a Grand Slam winner, just so you know, so listen carefully. The clock will start ticking.
Jamie, my 5th grade student, comes out of the leaves. He's got something in his hand. He says, "Mr. Dix, look, Look what I've got, it's a spoon. And I look, and it's true. He has a spoon. He's got a kitchen spoon in his hand, probably dropped by some kid from their lunch weeks ago. But I say to Jamie, that's not a spoon. That is the spoon of power. And because I tell Jamie that it's the spoon of power, Jamie now believes it's the spoon of power. And because I've said it's the spoon of power, I now believe it's the spoon of power. And now Jamie knows that I must have the spoon of power. And so for the 23 minutes I'm supposed to spend paying attention to other children, I chase Jamie for the spoon of power. We run across the playground, we go up the slides, we go through the tubes. 23 minutes later, the bell rings, and I still don't have the spoon of power. But that's okay, because he's in my class, and I've been teaching a long time. I know how 10-year-old boys work. They will slowly forget the important things they're supposed to remember, and that's the moment that I will pounce. So we go back to the classroom, we eat a snack, we read a book, we solve some math problems. 10 minutes left in the day, Jamie is writing a poem. It is time to get the spoon of power. So I creep up behind him, I get really close, I lean over, and the spot where the spoon of power has been resting all day is empty. And I think, this little jerk, he put it in his desk. So I plan this trip to the office, this ridiculous task, so that I can ransack his desk and get the spoon. But as I'm about to say it, he turns and smiles at me and says, did you really think I was going to leave it there? And then I look around and all my kids are smiling at me. They are all in on it. And I realize that damn spoon could be anywhere. So I spend 10 minutes trying to find this spoon in this sea of children, and then the bell rings and it is time to leave. And Jamie's bus is called, and as he's leaving the room, he stops at the classroom library right by the door. He reaches into a bin and takes out the spoon of power. He says, it was in the S's, and then he's out the door. So I know I must kill Jamie the next day in order to get my revenge, because the spoon of power is now lost forever. But when Jamie comes in the next day, he steps in and he says, hey, Mr. Dix, check this out. And he pulls the spoon of power out from his shirt on a chain around his neck. And I say, what? And he says, the chain is my mom's and the drill was my dad's. He's like Frodo with the ring. And now I know I can't get the spoon of power. You can't rip something off a student's neck and get away with it. And so he has defeated me. And so for the next couple days, he sort of taunts me with the spoon. He shakes it, he waves it. But eventually it sort of just becomes part of the wallpaper of the classroom. And it's just a thing in a room full of other things. The next Friday, Mackenzie Leonard is freaking out because we have a math test, and Mackenzie Leonard always freaks out about math tests. She's one of these kids who can do more than she knows, so I have to convince her everything's going to be okay, and I'm doing a bad job of it. And then Jamie stands up from the back of the room. He walks to Mackenzie Leonard. He takes the spoon off his neck, and he puts it on Mackenzie's neck and says, this will make you feel better. And I watch Mackenzie's anxiety melt away. 2 weeks later, Jonathan's grandfather dies. And when Jonathan comes back to class, Jamie is at the door. And when Jonathan walks in, he puts the spoon around Jonathan's neck and says, I think you'll need this today. And for the rest of the year, when there is a kid in trouble, or a kid worried, or a kid suffering in some way, Jamie stands and puts the spoon of power around their neck. And it works. On the last day of school, there's about 20 minutes left. They're fifth graders, so they're going off to middle school. So I say, does anyone want to say something to the class before we all go for the summer? And Jamie stands up, and he walks to the front of the room. He takes the spoon off his neck, and he tries to hand it to me. And I say, no, Jamie, it's your spoon. You earned it. And Jamie tells me that the magic of the spoon only works in our classroom, and that I have to keep it so the next time I have a student who needs help, I can put the spoon on their neck. And so I take it. And Jamie comes back for years to check on the spoon to make sure I still have it. This past year of teaching was the hardest and the best year of my life. My students and I were together beginning in October, 20 people in a room, and it felt crazy. And I used that spoon a lot. Half my class went into quarantine at one point during the year. When my wife, a kindergarten teacher, got COVID from one of her students, she and I and my family went into quarantine. It was a hard year, but it was a great year. And that spoon came out almost every day, this spoon. And I cannot tell you why this works. I have no idea why this spoon found in a leaf pile 14 years ago makes people feel better. I can only tell you that Jamie is right, that there is magic in this spoon. And if I was to put it on your neck right now, I promise you, you would feel better. And as a teacher, I am very lucky that I have this spoon every day for all of those kids who need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, next person. And then after this story, then we'll listen to Adam for a little bit more.
Up next, we have Jesri.
Jesri Marcano Courtney has presented for told at New Haven Arts and Ideas last year, Songs and Stories, Storytelling Collective, Storytelling Live with the Clinton Arts, and I know her through the Institute Library Story Sharing. Go for it, Jez.
Thanks. This cop looks like a baby. I should know. I'm 39. Officer, you very nearly hit the right side of my car. Don't know if you've noticed. Did I hit your car? Okay. He looks a little bit shocked. No, but very nearly, thank God. And that's when the look of concern drops from his face. So we're good then? Well, ain't that the $64,000 question? We're good when you reverse suddenly up the road, swerving hard into the lane that I'm driving in? We're good when so scared the only thing I can do is stop my car to brace for the impact of metal on metal? What does "so we're good then" even mean? Like, what am I supposed to do with that? Near miss? No harm, no foul, have a nice day? We could have been seriously hurt. I know I'm not the only person to get the brush off by police, and there has to somehow be a way to communicate this as a teachable moment. So I tell my story to the empowered voices at the monthly Story Share group because this is my safe space to tell the scary stories in my life. Well, if the cop car didn't hit yours, why did you think you should even say anything to him? Why are you telling this story? If we were to put the cop on trial for racism, I doubt he would be convicted. The near miss happens on a day I happen to be driving while brown and the cop driving the police car is white, but that isn't the point. Maybe you can tell us what was going on around you. Like, was there anyone else there? A black teenage boy, even younger than me and the cop, watches the near-miss accident happen while standing at a bus shelter. I saw everything. The police car didn't hit yours, I promise. Are you okay? He even asks me if I'm going to get the cop's ID and badge number. And then he says to me, make sure you write everything down so that you don't forget anything when you make your complaint, okay? Little did he know how good that advice would be because the cop didn't even have a business card. But when I return to my unharmed vehicle, the boy is next to me. He's been there the whole time. Thank you, brother. I grab his arm and I squeeze it, wishing I could give him a hug instead. I tell my experience to the Story Share group, all of the feels fall upon me like a sudden deluge of rain. Should I have even said anything to the cop? What, should I even have said anything to the cop? Then there is the constant replay of steaming mangled metal sitting in the middle of the road. Sometimes I don't survive. I deserve for the cop to be accountable for his actions. I should feel safe, and I should feel empowered to say when I don't. Now, I wonder if that's even the right thing to think. I know I deserve the same from the Story Share group, but I guess I'm wrong. Then I think of the boy, a baby, whose skin, his dark skin, innately makes him a danger. Yet it's he who provides safety and empowerment. I could allow my anxiety to imagine me into distrust, but I'd let the boy down, and I won't, even though the people I'm supposed to trust let me down. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesri. Okay, we're going to take a moment. Think about these stories. Think about which one you like the best while we listen to Adam Matlock.
You're starting to like all the time you spend out there in nature, digging a crater for all your friends and their intentions. Oh, did I mention I'm starting to see you for what you are? I'm starting to see you for what you are. I admire your clarity of vision. I get too distracted by something that isn't a reasonable action. Pulled off of the course and I made my way home by the light of your star. Made my way home by the light of your star. Ba 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 da 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 da. Gonna try to mispronounce this word. Gonna try to pretend like it's something I intended from the beginning. Gonna turn this newspaper upside down and say we're winning, even though defeat is close at hand. I've been getting inspired by birds, getting caught up in patterns of winged migration like you never heard. That you need a little wanderlust if you just want to pull your head up from the sand. But it's nicer in this world. It's nicer in this world with a distraction. It's nicer in this world. It's nicer in this world with a distraction. Think about all of the time you spend learning about all the biomes that make up our diet. We're turning from star stuff to dirt. Maybe God's in the earth and she's starting to see us for what we are. She's starting to see us for what we are. I'm so tired of the symptoms of stress, so I run to the forest looking for wild growth like Lady Porous. And when I get lost, I can make my way home by the light of your star. Make my way home by the light of your star. Ba 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 da da ba da 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 da. Ba 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 da da ba da da da. Gonna try to turn this channel down. Gonna try to cut off the stream of talking heads that are now competing. I don't wanna play-by-play of how our heroes are retreating. I was a B student of the past. How many tiny houses to build a tiny town? How do we make sure that in 100 years we will be around? Did you notice how I changed the subject without being asked? But it's nicer in this world. It's nicer in this world with a distraction. It's nicer in this world. It's nicer in this world with a distraction. Nicer in this world. Nicer in this world with a distraction. Nicer in this world. It's nicer in this world with a distraction. Thank you.
Give it up for Adam. Thank you. Okay, Kevin, let's pull another rabbit out of the hat.
Sleeping on the job.
Yeah.
And up next, we have Cynthia.
Cynthia Rojas. Stories explore a wide range of topics and perspectives. She's the second place winner of the Hartford Storyslam and the audience choice winner at Mass Mouth Storyslam. Go, Cynthia.
It is 10:30 p.m. on September 21st, 2017, and the phone rings. It is my younger sister, Betsy, and I know this is not good because her timing never is. Like when she was born, the timing just wasn't right for me. And I asked my mother, why? Why is she here? As I listen to Betsy, I think I hear what she's saying, but my heart is pacing and I paralyze. All I can imagine telling her or manage to tell her is I'll call you back. I turn to my husband and I'm sobbing and I tell him our grandparents have gone missing in the midst of Hurricane Maria. Betsy has tried to call them and she doesn't have any contact and she doesn't know if they've made it. And by this day, the hurricane had taken almost half of the island. It is the strongest hurricane to hit Puerto Rico in 80 years. Now, my grandpa is a pain. Everybody knows that. But my grandmother, she's amazing. My earliest memory of life is spending the weekends with her. And I'm 3 and 4 years old. What makes that even more amazing is that the next memory I have of life is almost 9 years later. My grandmother loved me more than anybody on this earth. And she knew, she felt that I was perfect just the way I am. And everyone should have someone who thinks they are perfect. My grandparents moved to Puerto Rico 2 weeks after Betsy was born. For the next 13 days, Betsy and I caught everybody and anybody who would listen. And then finally, there's a breakthrough. A childhood friend of ours, so remote, calling him a childhood friend feels like a sin. But he's an air traffic controller and he works for the FAA. And now it became Dennis's mission to save our grandparents. A small glimmer of hope. And on October 5th, the phone rings again. It's Betsy, and this time it's becoming routine. Who? Sully? Like the pilot? She says, yeah. Do you know him? Dennis says he's famous. Betsy, like Sully landed an airplane on the Hudson River. He saved 155 lives. There was a movie. Tom Hanks was the star. She goes, yeah, I've never heard of him or saw the movie. But Dennis says that Sully's gonna go look for our grandparents. Betsy, there are millions of people on the island. Why would Sully be looking for our grandparents? 'Cause Dennis asked them? Okay. For the next couple of days, there are text messages, and Pilot Sully is keeping us informed. There's all kinds of things he has to think about, like can he refuel? And what about the runways? And something about backlogs. And what would have been the greatest humanitarian effort, at least for our family, landed nowhere. Pilot Sully couldn't make it happen. It was too risky and too complicated. And Betsy and I were back to square one. It is 21 days later, and Betsy is exhausted. She's standing there thinking about the past 21 days, wondering about everything she's tried to do. She doesn't even know how she got here. She is so tired. And then she sees the wheelchair. It's Grandpa. And then next to him is Grandma. And she's holding on to a suitcase, which is all they got out with. Their whole lives is inside of a suitcase. And finally, Betsy gets to let it all out. Everything she's held. There is no humanitarian effort, fanfare. There's nothing here worthy of a book or even a movie. It is just Betsy in Fort Lauderdale Airport, picking up the two people she never gave up on. That glimmer of hope is what kept her, me, and our whole family breathing. You know, my grandmother always believed that I was perfect the way I am, but she's wrong. It is Betsy who is perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. That was wonderful. Okay, 2 people left.
All right. And up next, we have Nina.
Nina Lasiga hosts the Bridgeport Pachakacha, said it right, ooh, and the Bridgeport Art Trail Storytelling Exchange. Great to have you here, Nina.
I'd heard about the New York City No Pants subway ride. It's a day of silliness where people board a train and take off their pants in January. It seemed like so much fun, but I didn't think I would ever do it. I feared the audience's reaction. Now, I'm an adventurer, I'm a solo traveler, but sometimes I don't do stuff because of my plus size. In Vietnam, my tour guide invited me to hop on her motor scooter. At 57, I had never ridden one, and I feared we might tip over. But she said confidently, "Don't worry, I can handle you." I got on. I loved it. And I realized that I was just playing it too safe. I needed to bring bigger and better adventures into my life. On social media, I saw the call for no pants riders. I replied yes. I invited my family and friends to ride along one at a time. They said the same thing. You're on your own. I wanted to look good. I started to prepare my outfit. I walked up to my panty drawer to assess its contents. There wasn't one pair suitable for this purpose. I had to go shopping, and I stood at home in front of a long mirror with the camera in my hand, and I took photographs because I wanted to be certain I saw what other people were seeing. And I wanted to be a quality experience for me and the unsuspected riders. I chose leopard print silky panties with wide leg black pants. I traveled to New York City to the meeting point in a public park. People welcomed me. They said, "You can do this." And I thought to myself, hey, I just traveled 3 hours to get here. I am taking off my pants. It wasn't haphazard. We formed teams, and each team went into a different subway car. I was to go into the subway and take off my pants like it was the most natural thing in the world. If anybody asked me why I wasn't wearing any pants, I planned to say, I forgot mine. We were all scheduled to go off on a different stop with our coat, our scarves, our gloves, and our underpants. Down on the platform, I met Bunny Man. He was tall, handsome, bearded. He was wearing a kilt and bunny ears. He was holding a paper sack, which he took out a bottle of champagne. He uncorked it, took a big slug, and then passed it to me, not wanting to offend his kind act of hospitality. I drank too. And the train came in, and it was horribly crowded. I could not imagine taking off my pants in such a tight space. And I thought, sometime during your life, my mom told me not to get on a crowded train and take off my pants. My team members pushed themselves into the cars, and the doors closed. And I was on the platform by myself. And I'm thinking, you may need to abort this mission now because you're going to be the only one getting on the train and taking off their pants. And wouldn't you know, the train came right away, and there was lots of room. And I held tightly onto the pole, and I looked to my right, and I looked to my left. Then I took my thumb, and I stretched my elastic waistband, pulled the leg down low enough so I could step out of it, released my hand, and did the other side, and finished. To my right was an elderly Asian man with lots of shopping bags. The look on his face read, "Now I've seen everything." I was sure everybody was staring, but they weren't. My leopard print panties got lost amongst the sea of everything unusual on a New York City subway car. I rode the jolting train to Union Square, where I met with hundreds of no-pant riders, where we celebrated. We took Instagram photos. On the New York City no-pants ride, everyone belongs, regardless of their side. The only roadblocks were those that were in my head.
Thank you, Nina. Well, we just have one teller left, so we don't need to pull a name out of the hat. Jamie Brickhouse is a 4-time Moth Storyslam champion, National Storytelling Network Grand Slam winner, and Literary Death Match champ, whatever that is.
Thank you. I have always loved old movies and fur, and ever since I was a little boy growing up in small town Texas, there was nothing more glamorous to me than seeing my favorite movie star, Joan Crawford, sipping a martini while wearing a big, boxy mink. So I loved being coat check boy at my parents' Christmas parties, and it didn't matter that the thermometer rarely dipped below 50 degrees. All of the wives would show up in their air-conditioned Cadillacs and Lincolns and parade into our air-conditioned house wearing the latest black minks, silver foxes, white rabbits, ugh. But the coat that fascinated me the most was old Lady Dorothy's then unfashionable black Persian lamb. It was unlike any of the other coats, with its strange, squiggly pattern of raised, satiny black fur. It looked like a coxcomb flower or the surface of a brain. And I imagined myself wearing that coat and sipping a martini just like Joan Crawford. And I thought, I wish boys could wear fur. And then I moved to New York City. Now, I got the martini part of that picture right, and I was on that bandwagon for like on a daily basis. But the coat part took me 10 years, and when I was at a flea market, there it was, hanging on a chain link fence, all by itself, as if it had been waiting just for me. The holy grail of vintage fur, a black Persian lamb. And it was a man's Persian lamb. I paid $150 for it, another $150 to have it tailored and altered to fit me perfectly. I was as excited as a schoolgirl about a new prom dress. But I was not going to wait for any prom to wear that coat. No, ma'am. On the very day that coat was ready, a cold February day, I wore it to the office of a job I loathed. When I put on that coat with a pair of vintage black sunglasses, I was immediately smart, sexy, and chic. Fur changes a person. And delightfully queenie. I mean, nobody on the street would have mistaken me for a football fan. But when I got to that job and I took off the coat, and there was the boring work ahead of me, all that glamour drained away. So I couldn't wait to show it off to my best friend, Mr. Parker, at our watering hole where I had drinks almost every day after work to forget that job. And I walked into the bar, and Mr. Parker was already 2 fingers into his martini, and I did a quick model turn and glanced over my sunglasses, and he said, "My God, darling, you look fabulous, like Joan Crawford in one of those black Glama What Becomes a Legend Most ads." I said, "You think so? Thanks." After that first martini, I started to forget that job I hated. After 3 more martinis, I barely remembered I had a job. Now, Mr. Parker eventually went home to his boyfriend, and I should have done the same thing, but I was feeling too high to waste that 4 martini high. And so I headed over to the Sodomite resorts across town. Now, the coat was a hit at Barracuda Bar. Fabulous coat. What is that, brain fur? My grandmother had a Persian lamb. I adored it. And then I decided to up the ante and score a wintry mix. Not what the weatherman calls a mix of rain and snow, but what I called a mix of booze and nose candy. And I headed over to the Rawhide. Now, the Rawhide was ostensibly a leather bar, but all were welcome. But I can assure you I was the only one wearing a black Persian lamb coat that night. The place was packed. It was stripper night, but I managed to get a bar stool, and I put my coat on the back of the stool, and I ordered a drink, and then I bumper cart around the bar, talking to boys, doing nose candy, talking to more boys, doing more. And when I got back to the bar to get another drink, I lifted up a pea coat to get mine underneath, and it wasn't there. "Hey!" I yelled at the bartender. "I had a Persian lamb coat right here." "What, honey? We didn't see anything like that in here." I run around the bar looking for it, nothing. I ran outside to the frigid cold street, hoping that maybe I'll see the thief casually sauntering away. Nada. So I went back inside, and I did the only thing I knew how to do in those days in a moment of crisis. I ordered another drink. And in the time it took me to down that martini, I went through the 5 stages of loss and grieving. Denial, it has to be here. I know I'm going to find it somewhere. Anger, who in the Rawhide would steal a Persian lamb coat? Bargaining, please, if you bring it back to me, I'll never let it out of my sight again. Depression, I didn't even get to wear it to a party, much less the prom. Acceptance, it's gone. I never deserved it. And when I exit that dark cave of a bar, an arctic blast of wind assaults my coatless body. Damn, it's cold out here. And when I finally sobered up, about 3 years later, I started to understand the relationship between booze and loss, but I had to lose a lot of other things, a pair of Gucci sunglasses, that job I hated so much, almost my life. And when I started to imagine myself without a martini, I still couldn't quite get over that black Persian lamb coat until I was at an estate sale. And I bid on and won a 6.5-foot long, chestnut brown, ranch mink stole scarf finished with fur fingers. That mink trumps the Persian lamb. Why? Because the previous owner had once been, and I bowel movement you not, none other than Miss Joan Crawford. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And now comes your part of the evening. So, you've got to vote on these stories. Do you remember all of them? Do you remember Jenny putting her child to bed? Do you remember Ron at his reunion? Do you remember Matt with the spoon of power? Jesri with the cup that almost hit her? Cynthia looking for her grandparents in Puerto Rico? And Jamie with the Persian coat. Okay, so let's go back over this. And Nina, I'm sorry, no pants Nina. How could we not forget that? I like that, no pants Nina. Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. Let's hear it for Jenny. Ron and the reunion. The spoon of power, Matt Dix. Jesri and the police officer. Cynthia and the grandparents in Puerto Rico. No pants Nina. Jamie and the coat. Okay, this is not easy. Kevin? Yeah. Okay, not it, yeah. Okay, this was harder than I thought it was going to be. I think it was between, who? Mike? Nina and Matt? Between Nina and Matt. So let's go back. No pants, Nina? The spoon of power.
I think we're going to need another plaque.
What? You're going to need another? I think we might need another one. I think all of them were winners, don't you? So, but I do have to give the wonderful prize to someone. So I think maybe Nina? Spoon of power? You guys aren't helping me out here. Come on. Make a choice. Make a choice. Spoon of power. We've got a vote over here for spoon of power, people. Yes? Nina? Who gets the fancy plaque to take home? Would be. This is not easy, people. Not easy.
All right, let's do hands.
Yeah, do hands. Let's do this the old-fashioned way, because I can't do this the other way. Spoon of power. Jesus. Okay. No pants, Nina. You can't put up two at a time. Come on, you guys are cheating. Spoon of power it is. Congratulations, Matt. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We're going to end up with a song from Adam, but stick around. We have a great band coming out Basil and the Supernatural. So hang on, go get some to-go food, come sit, eat, drink, and listen to music. Adam, take it away, please.
River runs at the end of the day. Your hair still wet from swimming. Chill on the air is just a tease, like it was this morning. Sent to bed when your hair was dry. The egg still smelled of flowers. Autumn lingers in the breeze, scene unfolding slower. Listen, listen, remember what you hear is just the sound of friction. It keeps me up all night, I'm wondering. Moments passing by like months, a forest you could drink in. I only said the wrong thing once, when you were at the sink. Spend 3 days all in those woods. Forest came that weekend. Engines shattered all that calm. To balance it, we stopped speaking. Listen, listen. Remember what we hear is just the sound of friction. It keeps me up all night. I live my life with questions. Choices help me pass the time, but my regrets are showing up too fast. I'm wondering. I'm wondering. Oh, I'm wondering. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. If you want to see what's happening tomorrow, we have Legend the Drag Show at 8 p.m. Check out artidea.org. Good night.
Picture me growing freely, no ceiling, no roof. Going deep with no stones to entangle my roots like they do.
Waking up tired and waiting for the horizon to remind me this work is all for love again. Looking